Hello everyone and welcome to Ash's Whisky Wars. For today's episode of the NeckPour, we've got a blended whisky, a blended Scotch I should say. And this is from a distillery that I've never reviewed on the channel before. It's one of the most popular distilleries in the world, probably the most popular Scotch distillery. And I must admit I've tried the red and the black before. I've never tried the green label, and that's today's whiskey. Now the green label is a 15-year-old blended Scotch, minimum age 15. It could have some older whiskies in there, but I would probably assume it's probably unlikely. But its minimum years 15. But it's a purely single malt blend, so there shouldn't be any grain spirit in here. And you don't get much information at the back. But actually on the front it does say it's going to pull from 4 distilleries. It will have other whiskies in there, but the 4 distilleries that they mention in the blend are going to be Talisker and Kalila, which I'm very familiar with. I'm sure most of you guys are as well. But 2 that I'm not familiar with is Cragganmore and Linkwood. And it says it pulls out Linkwood for its freshness and vibrancy, and that's a Speyside whiskey. And then it uses the Cragganmore for fragrance and maltiness. I think Cragganmore is a Highland distillery, but I've never had either. And then also it says Kalila for its big maritime character and Talisker for its intense smoke and spiciness. But then it also mentioned Lowland, which it hasn't actually mentioned which distillery from Lowland, and that's probably going to be Glenkinchie, since it is part of a lot of other Johnnie Walkers. I actually recently bought the Glenkinchie 12, which will be a NeckPour coming soon as well. I just reviewed that. I should have mentioned what it's proofed at. This whiskey is proofed at 43% ABV. So let's just get it open. It is quite a nice looking bottle, it's just that I'm so used to seeing red label that the bottle for me, it doesn't have that same opulence that I think it could have got really. But when you associate an opulent bottle design with a bottom shelf Scotch, it can skew your perception when you see that bottle on more higher end of their range. Okay, cork pop time. I kind of ruined that by knocking the glass on there, so apologies for that. It was this that made the noise. But that was on there very snug. Okay, let's see. Straight away I'm going to try and pick out Kalila and Talisker because they're going to be the obvious notes, really. Actually, the note that I think I'm getting is Glenkinchie. I'm getting a sweet, malty character with a grassy element. That's the first thing that I'm picking up, actually. Underneath that, I'm picking up a little bit of earthiness. Yeah, it's like honey, butterscotch, maltiness. A slight touch of lemon, and then underneath that I'm getting a little bit of earthiness, but I'm not really getting any smoke as of yet. Just a touch of spiciness at the back end, not coming across like black pepper though, which I'm used to with Talisker. Salt and pepper, I always say. Salt, pepper and smoke. It's kind of coming across a little bit like a ginger. And actually there's a little bit of a coffee element to the whiskey. So this is, very first opinions of the whiskey. And maybe I'm going to, I think I'm going to get more of that Talisker and Kalila element on the taste than I do on the nose. Overall though, do you know, this actually isn't too bad. I've recently done the Arnock 12, the Glenkinchie 12. And I actually think on the nose I prefer this green label. So it's it's definitely producing something good. It is coming across a little bit coastal as well, which I like. I'm just not picking up that. I'm not really picking up Talisker or Kalila, but there's something a little bit earthy underneath everything, and it also I'm getting a little bit of coastal elements. And you'd imagine that's the coastal element is probably coming from Talisker, and the earthiness maybe Kalila. Okay guys, let's get stuck onto the taste. I'm impressed with the amount of flavours that I was getting. It was more than what I was thinking I was going to get. But let's check it out on the taste. I think I'm going to pull a little bit from Talisker and Kalila on the taste. That does happen sometimes with whiskies for me. The nose, it can be a little bit more subtle. The taste reveals all. But just before we do though guys, if you enjoy the video, please click a like on the video. Please share the video as well. That's really helpful for getting new people to watch my videos. And please, if you haven't already, please do click that subscribe button as well. Okay, here we go. I do like the grassy element on the nose though. I do like that, and I'm pretty sure that is Glenkinchie. But of course, I've had the 12 year. This is minimum of 15 years, so let's get on to the taste. But initial thoughts on the nose. Thumbs up so far. Again, could be a first dram of the day thing, but I got a lot of spiciness on the taste there. And a lot of coffee. A lot of espresso bean, which I'm always a fan of. I do think as well, I do get coffee in a few whiskies. When I do, it does add a level of spiciness to the whiskey. So I would say this is like a blend between ginger and coffee, because I can feel this actually warm hug on my throat, and I think it's from the ginger, this warming spiciness of this whiskey on that taste then. Those were the two big elements I was getting. It was kind of like espresso and ginger blended with this lemon and honey. But the surprising part is I'm not picking up Talisker and Kalila. Second sip, a lot less spicy, and I could pick out a little bit of salinity in the whiskey, and this faint bit of smoke, but it's light. I wouldn't call this is not a smoky whiskey. That is light, that smoke, but I do get the saltiness. And so I'm thinking the spiciness and the saltiness, that faint hint of smoke, probably from Talisker. Not really getting the Kalila, I've got to be honest. I'm not getting anything medicinal, I'm not getting anything earthy. I got a bit more earthiness on the nose than I do on the taste. So I'm not trying to focus on those two distilleries too much, because actually I want to talk about the whiskey itself, and I am enjoying the whiskey itself. It's just that if you probably are looking forward to those two whiskies, you'll be disappointed, because I don't get a strong presence of those whiskies in this blend. Lime hard candy on the nose now, but the grassiness is still there. I always find it interesting, once you have that taste and go back to the nose, there's always a note extra that you pick out, and then there's always a note that gets more subdued. I would actually call this a fairly spicy whiskey. But it's not going to come across as like an oak and black pepper spiciness. It really do think of espresso beans mixed with ginger. It's spicy and it's warming as well. It's nicely done, actually. I like that. I do get the grassiness on the taste, and that does add a little bit of something to counter the sweetness. I'm happy that it's not too malty in its flavour profile. It's there, it's sweet, but it's not too strong in those notes, because it's countered with a grassy bitterness, and then also the spiciness from the espresso and ginger. earthiness and smoke is not something that's strong on here at all. Very, very faint for me. Maybe it's different for you. Okay guys, what are my final thoughts of my first thoughts of this whiskey? Honestly, I'm impressed. I do like this whiskey. I'll just touch on the price now. This whiskey retails for £45 in the UK, and I actually picked this one up on Black Friday, which was a few days ago actually, and it was between £30 and £35. Let's say £35. So a £10 saving there. For £35, this is well worth it. I mean, really impressed. I actually think for £45, I wouldn't be offended by that price at all. I wouldn't feel like I've been robbed. So I would say, what's this whiskey worth? Maybe around that £40 mark. I'd be very happy paying £40 for this whiskey. Based on my initial thoughts, I was assuming I'd pick up a little bit more Talisker and Kalila presence. I think I get more Talisker than I do Kalila, but overall I'm actually quite happy with the whiskey. I'm excited as always to see how it's going to open up over the coming weeks. I know Johnnie Walker does get a bad reputation in the sort of whiskey community, even though it's a very, very high selling and very popular distillery. I have to say though, as far as the green label goes, it's getting a big thumbs up from me so far. So okay guys, that's going to conclude this episode of the NeckPour for the Johnnie Walker Green Label, which is a 15-year-old whiskey bottled at 43%. If you did enjoy the video, please click like on the video, please share the video with friends, and please, most importantly, if you haven't already, please do click that subscribe button. I hope you're all having a great time in this festive season. I hope you're all getting excited for Christmas if you do celebrate Christmas. And if you don't, I hope you're all happy and healthy at this moment in time. And it is nice to treat yourself to a whiskey every now and then, so do remember that. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I hope to see you all for the next Whiskey War.